Alright, cadets, take your seats. I will be your military instructor for this evening. Today, we will be discussing the Battle of the Bulge, or for those of you who did your assigned reading will know it as the Ardennes Offensive. Cadets, the year is 1944 and the world has been ravaged by 5 long years of brutal war. By December of 1944, the Allies have managed to liberate most of France, Belgium, and Luxembourg. They pushed the Germans back to a series of defenses the Germans called the Western Wall. Behind this wall was native German soil, and they were not about to give it up easy. On the Eastern Front, the Soviets had entered native Germany and began their campaign of brutal retaliation against the German people. Hitler knew that if he was to stop the Soviets, he must first knock out the Western Allies. To do this, he devised a plan to punch through the Ardennes forest here, encircle 4 Allied armies, and recapture the crucial supply port at Antwerp. Once he had done this, he would use the captured soldiers as leverage, sue for a separate peace with the Western Allies, refocus his attention to the East, and win the war. The Allies, for their part, were completely unprepared. They'd be up to desperate, small unit actions to hold the line and give command enough time to mount a counterattack. For us in our lecture today, we'll be discussing 3 men. A young lieutenant caught in the northern shoulder of the assault. Then we will shift our focus to the besieged city of Bastogne and their 2 embattled commanders, Heydrich von Lüttwitz and General McAuliffe. The Battle of the Bulge was a story of heroic triumph and tragic sacrifice. It was one of the largest U.S. engagements in the European theater during the Second World War. For us in our story today, our lecture begins in the frozen plains of Belgium. My name is Lieutenant Lyle Brock, 394th Infantry, 99th Division. I was in command of a 15-man reconnaissance platoon outside the city of Lazareth, Belgium, when on December 16, 1944, over 500 German paratroopers came down the road towards us. To make matters worse, our tank support up and left us, leaving us totally alone and outnumbered 33 to 1. I asked command to withdraw, but they told me to stay, so I ordered my men to dig in the side of a hill, and we waited. The fighting was brutal. I'll never forget it. Towards the end of it, we were outflanked and out of ammunition. I ordered the surrender when a German jumped into my foxhole and shot me in the leg. When it was all said and done, though, we inflicted 93 casualties upon the Germans and held them there for 18 hours despite the odds, holding off the entire 9th Panzer Army and binding us the 99th Infantry, crucial time. But despite doing all I could, I'll never forgive myself for surrendering. I joined the Army at 14 and became an officer at 20. And on my first combat mission, I got all of my men captured. I'll have to live with that for the rest of my life. But regardless, though, this may sound superstitious to some of you. When I was little, I had an aunt in Louisiana who, she read my palm once. She was a palm reader. She said, "Lyle, if you live past the age of 21, you live a long and happy life." Well, yesterday was my birthday. I made it. Regardless, though, I need to get back to my men. It was nice talking to you all. God bless you. My name is Heydrich von Lüttwitz, commander of the 47th Panzer Corps, and I am a proud German. I can trace my family lineage back to the 14th century. I come from a long line of German soldiers. Myself, this is not my first World War. Since 1914, I enlisted in the German army as a private. And it's now in 1944, I'm a general. The Führer's plan is simple. We shall punch through the Ardennes forest, encircle the Allies, and win the war. My men are part of the southern flank as they attack here. We have surrounded a small unit of American paratroopers in the city of Bastogne. They are surrounded, outnumbered by 5 to 1. They cannot hold out for much longer. I have drafted this letter to be given to the American commander, asking for his honorable surrender. To the USA commander of the encircled town of Bastogne, the fortunes of war are changing. This time, strong German armored units have surrounded all USA troops in the city of Bastogne. The only possibility to save the encircled troops from total annihilation is the honorable surrender of the encircled town. if this proposal should be rejected, strong artillery corps and 6 heavy AA battalions are ready to annihilate all troops in and near the city of Bastogne. The resulting civilian casualties caused by this artillery bombardment would not correspond with the Americans' well-known humanity. Be sure that this gets to the American commander and tell him it is the only way to save his men. My name is General McAuliffe, commander of the 101st Airborne of Bastogne. Believe you have a letter for me? Well, nuts! Germans asking us to surrender. To tell you the truth, when I first read this letter, I assumed the Germans are asking to surrender to us. Germans must think us crazy if we're going to surrender at this crucial moment. Bastogne is a key point. And the Germans are allowed to take it, they'll have access to the entirety of our southern flank. If the Germans are allowed to reach the Meuse River, this war is over. I suppose my initial remark summarized it quite well, didn't it? Nuts. Let that be my reply. You be sure that gets to the German commander, and you tell him that we will kill every German that enters this city. Now, Christmas is coming up. A lot of the men are starting to miss home. So my staff and I have drafted this letter to congratulate the boys on their heroic achievements. To the 101st Airborne, Merry Christmas. What is merry but all this you may ask? We are cold, we are fighting, all true. What of the men of the proud Eagle Division and their worthy comrades, the 10th Armored, 705th Tank Destroyer Battalion, and all the rest accomplished? Just this. We have stopped cold, everything to the north, south, east, and west of us. Strong German units were heading to key points when the proud Eagle Division was sent in to stop them. How effectively this was done will go down in history. Not alone in our division's glorious history, but in world history. Allied troops are counterattacking in force. We will continue to hold Bastogne. And by holding Bastogne, we assure the success of the Allied army. We are truly making for ourselves and our loved ones back home a worthy Christmas present, and being privileged to take part in this gallant feat of arms, and truly making for ourselves a Merry Christmas. Signed, General McAuliffe, Commanding. The 101st Airborne would hold Bastogne for 7 days before being relieved by Patton's 3rd Army. It was thanks to heroic efforts like the ones of Lieutenant Lyle Brock and the 101st Airborne and countless others. The Germans were eventually stalled and rolled back. When the Germans retreated back across the line on January 25th, 1945, they were so exhausted of men, material, and resources, they could not stop the Allies from liberating Denmark, Norway, Austria, and most of Western Germany, liberating millions of people from fascist occupation and saving them from the brutal Soviet onslaught. However, this rapid advance would lead to the East-West split in Central Europe, dividing Luttwitz's beloved homeland between capitalists and communists for the better part of 40 years. Despite the many triumphs of the Battle of the Bulge, it came at a great cost. Thousands of soldiers would die in one of the worst winters in European history. Men froze to death in their foxholes. Many would die, frozen alone, thousands of miles away from their loved ones. Others, their remains would be lost in the snow and only recovered in the spring. When the battle ended on January 25th, 1945, over 10,000 American soldiers lay dead, and alongside them another 12,000 Germans. The Battle of the Bulge was a story of heroic triumph and tragic sacrifice. For us today, it is important we remember their stories, for forgetting the sacrifices of our ancestors would be the greatest tragedy of all. That'll be all for today's lecture. Cadets, dismissed. That's it. Sorry. I can breathe again. Wow.
Yeah, I was saying before, I think performance is the hardest category on History Day itself, because everyone else has made their projects already, and you all actually have to get up there and do something.
Well, that's what I've been telling people.
Yeah.
It's like, you see, the interview, it's like, okay, all right, like, that's part of it, but I don't think I said like performances. We are the project. You are the project. What's really presented. So it's a different experience.
Actually, that's a good first question. What made you decide to do, because you've got a lot of maps and stuff, I can
Yeah.
see this being a website or an exhibit. What made you decide to go performance with it?
Well, when I was thinking about the theme, I thought about like what the real tragedy of the Battle of the Bulge, right? Like it's a battle. Why do people care about it, right? Why do they care about the tragedy of this battle? We won the war. Like some people would write it off, right? Well, I felt that the actual tragedy of the Battle of the Bulge was really captured in the individual suffering of the soldiers on the ground, and I felt like you can't really show that to an audience, to a judge, if you don't show it. You know, you show this, you show the anxiety, you show the suffering, you show the hardship. That's the real tragedy of the Battle of the Bulge.
I note from your process paper the personal connection
Mhm.
that you had. Was there anything that, in the course of doing your research for this performance, that you found surprising?
Found surprising. Well, there's a lot of things I found surprising. I think a lot of when I think people have a lot of support from movies and things like that. But the Battle of the Bulge wasn't just Bastogne. There was a lot of other places. And I couldn't. It's a really focal point. People really know that about. But like they overlook a lot of things. Like I didn't know anything about the Iceboard Ridge, which was right about here, and it was like just a ridge line that the Allies managed to hold, and the Germans like launched like almost like 10,000 artillery shells a day at this one little ridge here, and they kept attacking it and falling back, attacking and falling back. It really was a truly. I wasn't able to talk about it because 10 minutes is an unbelievably short amount of time. But I found that really surprising. All these different places, different units, and things I'd never seen in movies. You know, I wish someone made a movie about it. You know.
Was there anything else that you felt you had to leave out that you wish you had more time to discuss?
Geez. There's a lot I had to leave out, but the most important thing I feel like was one of the long-term impacts of the Battle of the Bulge that again a lot of people don't know about. It surprised a lot of people because this side of the story is never really shown. At the siege of Bastogne, 3 out of all the 4 artillery divisions defending the city were all black, because at the time America was a segregated army, right? And the story is never really told about how the chaos of the Battle of the Bulge would break down a lot of the units. Like there's a lot of instances of just total divisions just shattering into millions of pieces and reforming other groups of divisions. So it's very similar to the Normandy landing that way. And by just desperation, it forced white soldiers and black soldiers for like one of the first times fight side by side together. And what it did was it showed not just to the white soldiers that, hey, if we were told that these African Americans, they don't fight as hard as us, they're not the same as us, but that's not what I saw. I saw they fighting just as hard as us. But it also showed to many of the black soldiers that, hey, this is not just their war, this is my war too. And what the end result of that would be is a lot of those African American soldiers going back home, seeing the mistreatment and going, hey, that's not fair. I earned my place too, just like anyone else. And the end result of this, and this is mentioned in Anthony Beeber's Ardennes, towards the long-term impact, which was one of my key sources that I use. I read it almost cover to cover. He mentions how it would be the Battle of the Bulge in that way, and this inspiration fighting side by side that would lead to the eventual desegregation of the army in 1948.
Could you tell us, David, about that map?
This map.
About how it was created?
How it was created? Well, Google is wonderful. No, I'm kidding. No, so I happen to be fortunate to have a dad that works in a lot of print shops, right? So my first map, I found the map, I liked it. I felt like I had to show. Well, that's a huge part of my research, but I feel like you can't show. You're just talking about these places and these things and these movements, like maybe someone who's done like 9 months of research on this would know, but like a lot of people don't know like these towns and cities. So I felt like I had to show it. But I had to show these places and show the German movements that was going to tell the story. The map itself it's a piece of blackboard, and blackboard I have on top of it. My dad works with print shops and things like that, and he was able to get one of these things printed on one of their machines as a favor. And so it's just whiteboard on the bottom then, and then it's just it's just an image from one of the resources I found, the Army Green Book, the Ardennes, which was an 8-volume series complete of the Second World War, official from the U.S. Army, written by Cole, I believe. And then the pictures, I did a similar thing where I took blackboard, and then I made the decision to put the 3 characters I was talking about, because I can show you, because the 3 characters that were in my performance are all real people, and I tried to base this closely to the primary research I could find about them. A lot of the stories I said, like the personal story about Lyle and his aunt, that was a real story from something I found in an interview he did in 2012. And
I showed you their pictures, what they would look like at the time, and I showed them where they would be relatively, so you get like a feeling of like where we're zooming in the minor, you know, to capture the individual soldier and present that to the audience. So.
Do you have, you don't even have to speak in full sentences when you say this, but
Sure,
just some
sure,
kind of bullet points.
Sure.
What are some current or recent triumphs or tragedies that continue or linger from the Battle of the Bulge?
Well, we live in a post-Cold War era, so it'd be like the Battle of the Bulge would lead to the Cold War split, you know, in the East and West. That's something that we're still trying to do. You can see parts of Germany, you know, it's still East-West. You can also see, also the Battle of the Bulge, the desegregation part that I wasn't able to, but wasn't part of the battle. We're still dealing with a lot of like racial differences right now, and I feel like that's also one of the things that was highlighted in the Battle of the Bulge. So progress made, but like perhaps not enough, one of those things, you know. So we're still seeing the outcomes of that.
Thank you.
How did you find the contemporary media covering the battle, if they did at all?
Newspaper clippings. A lot of it was newspaper clippings. There's a few great websites. The name escapes me at the moment, but like you can go through and you can find articles at the time, and you can actually the wax copies that they make that are preserved. You can it's like individual accounts. Like there's a few in the back, I believe. There's a few individual accounts captured in newspapers. So that's something that the media covered.
Did they cover the significance of the battle, or did that come later?
Later. When the battle first broke out, there was a 48-hour media blackout because people were afraid that the Germans were going to retake Paris and there's going to be riots and things. So actually, a lot of people got freaked out because they thought, "Oh crap, the Germans are coming back," you know. But